Lord, have mercy.
Lord, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
The temptation of Jesus in the desert, the gospel reading that we hear about on the first Sunday of Lent, shows us how Satan begins to lead us away from God with small temptations that may seem harmless. In fact, at times, they can even appear to be good. Satan tells Jesus to turn the stones into loaves of bread. Jesus had been fasting in the desert for 40 days. He wasn't just hungry. He was starving. Getting a loaf of bread or even a sandwich doesn't seem like that big of a deal. It is something that is so small and so ordinary, but Satan wants Jesus to doubt God. Satan wants Jesus to question whether or not he can survive another day in the desert. And in the third temptation, we see where all temptation leads: the worship of Satan. Satan tells Jesus that if Jesus worships him, Satan will give Jesus all the kingdoms of the world. The kingdoms don't belong to Satan, but he is so hungry for power, he will do anything or say anything he can because he has the slightest hope of turning Jesus' back on God. He begins with those small things in our life, those things that seem harmless, because he knows that if we give in to those small temptations, later on we are more likely to give in to larger temptations and more serious sin. That's his plan. But Satan's plan didn't work with Jesus, because every time Satan tempts Jesus, Jesus responds by quoting Scripture. Pope Francis tells us Scripture has the ability to free us from our temptations because they are temporary trials. And Scripture tells us how God has saved his people from their trials throughout all of salvation history. Scripture reminds us how God has been with us, how God is with us now, and how God will always be with us, even in our smallest temptations. This Lenten season, if you find you are struggling with temptation, take a moment to pray with Scripture. Remember, God is with us, and he is faithful.
We are sinners. Lord, deliver